What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Bingetown TV. Today, we are covering HBO's Dune Prophecy, Episode 4, titled In Blood, Truth. And as always, if you are familiar with us at all, I'm going to send you over to bingetowntv.com. That's going to house everything we do. You can find us on any of the social medias at Bingetown TV. It's the same on Twitter, Reddit, Discord. Everything is Bingetown TV, so we're very easy to get a hold of. So come hang out with us on Discord. We're over there building a community. I feel like it's growing every single week, and that's how we best interact with all of our fans and basically just get recommendations, and we just talk with you guys. So it's one of our favorite things that we're currently doing. So definitely head over to Discord and find Bingetown TV. So guys, Dune Prophecy, Episode 4, In Blood and Truth. Weird name with that comment in there. But episode 5, In Blood and Truth.
Yeah. It feels like more episode 4.
Yeah. So there's a lot to talk about here. It actually might have been the shortest episode, but I just want to start off by saying I think it was my favorite. I'm still coming off of like just the recency of having watched it, but it definitely sticks out as having the most payoff to random things. I didn't think we were going to get some payoffs this early, and I'm saying early, we're in episode 5, but I thought they were going to save some of these reveals that we got this episode for the finale. So I was kind of hype about that because elephant in the room, my God, none of us called the ancestry of Desmond and who that was going to turn out to be. I can't believe we didn't.
I did.
You said it was going to be Tula's kid?
Yeah.
Oh, I totally don't remember you standing confidently on that theory. Did you throw it out there, or were you actually believing that?
I laughed at it. I mean, you said it, and I was like, "Yeah, that'd be cool."
So. Yeah, I mean, I literally listened to the episode 4 podcast today, and I was like, "Ha."
Nice. Well, I mean, clearly, I just ignore you when you talk, but that was a good call then.
That's fine.
But that opens the door to so many questions, and the most interesting one I would just want to pose it to you guys right off the top. Do you think that Paul is a descendant of Desmond, or is Paul a descendant of Kieran? Because now there's two possibilities of the family line that he can come from. And I think it's so much more interesting for him to somehow be related to Desmond.
I just feel like Desmond's line has the less chance of
surviving.
Thing.
Yeah.
Like, who is he? I mean, unless he knocks the Empress up, like, I don't know.
That's a legit thought I had, though.
Yeah. But also, I mean, Kieran is right now at this point locked up, so he doesn't seem to have too much of a genetic future, let's say, either. So,
but did you like the reveal?
I think so. I mean, for me, it really just will depend on what it actually means. Okay. Like, the fact is out there, but like, what is actually the significance of it? How they handle that in the next episode, I think, will be the actual important thing.
I feel like if we had to talk through, is Paul Atreides a descendant of Desmond or Kieran, we would have to talk through some other theories first, because we do kind of hear about this virus that was made by the machines that are now inhabiting people. So is that what is, in Desmond controlling him? That's the conversation we're going to have later. I feel like if Desmond is infected, it's just going to be harder for him, exactly what you guys were saying, his line to continue. I feel like if he is infected, he's just going to be mincemeat and dead by the end of the next episode. I think he's like the most interesting character out of everybody, though. And, arguably my favorite. So I don't want him to die. I like weirdly want Paul to be a descendant of Desmond, because we've already talked about it. But if Kieran is surviving on the Atreides name alone, pretty much. And I'm not his biggest fan, so I'm just drawn to Desmond. So it's just, I didn't think that was going to be a thing. I didn't think Tula's kid was going to be a thing, because how the hell did Ori survive, right? Assuming,
well, no, he didn't have to survive. Kieran's ancestor survived, was the kid that was the Game of Thrones actor. He survived. Yes. Separate line was Tula got pregnant the night before she killed Ori, so she would have been fine. He's dead. And then Desmond confirmed in this episode that his mom threw him to the scavengers, and he basically was an orphan by himself. So that's how they grew up separately. And that also is how he bred all of his hatred towards the sisterhood. And that's such a better response or a better motivation for hating the sisterhood than just to blindly hate technology. It would make sense for them to have gone either way, but this way is cooler, in my opinion. I just think it makes more sense that he has a vendetta against his mom for abandoning him as a kid and essentially murdering all of his family members too. But yeah, Ori's definitely dead. He's not coming back.
All right. Yeah, that makes so much sense. I don't know why I got mixed up there, but yes, Albert, I believe, was the survivor. Albert
Kieran's, yeah.
Atreides. I mean, tons and tons to talk through. This episode is crazy, but I super excited for. I mean, this is the most excited I've been for the next episode. I feel like they just teed
I
it up,
agree.
but I mean, at the same time, expectations are high, so we'll see.
Mhm. Where does it rank for you, Kyle? Like, how would you say that's your favorite, in the middle of the pack, or the beginning? Because for me personally, I don't think anything's been lower than a 7.0 out of 10, but nothing's been higher than an 8. This might be the highest, falling at like a 7.7, just because of my expectations being raised after them landing some of these plot twists and leading up to the finale. But that's kind of where I'm at. I think everything's been close. It has a consistent average, I would say.
Yeah, I don't. It's definitely not my favorite. I think an issue for me also feels like I don't know how connected I actually feel to these characters. In that, like, I don't know how much emotion the show is actually bringing out of me for like some of these moments. Like I just am. I think I'm just so stuck on the fact that we have such a short runway that it's just I'm upset that it's only 6 episodes.
Yeah.
That's just like I think it's hard for me to get off that mindset. Obviously, the finale will be what it is, and who has any idea what it's going to be and how much stuff they're going to pack into it. But I thought it's a good episode, but it's definitely not the best one to me. It feels just very middle of the road in compared to the rest of the season.
Okay. I just was a big fan of the Raquel stuff coming back. I liked the Fremen reveal with Michaela, which I think we talked about in the past anyway. I just thought I agree with you where I almost don't care about the characters that much. It's more about the twists related to the world building that's related to the movies of Dune. That's why I'm like, I
Yeah.
thought that this one might have been the best. And I have a theory or two that we're going to get into as we break through the episode. If you're ready, we can just start diving into Wallach IX, because this is going to spawn its own fun conversations. So let's just pick up with we're back after Lyla has been revived, and did not see this coming, but she still has like a feral side to her where she can't necessarily control all of her emotions. She can't control or fend off all of her ancestors trying to take control of her body. So what happens right in the beginning is Tula ends up recruiting Jen, who seems to have some sort of resistance to these nightmares that are occurring for all the acolytes, and she wants Jen to help get Lyla back to the light and use her in a positive way for the sisterhood's goals. So we get a lot of that here, including like phasing in and out of Lyla being conscious. Then she gets taken over by Raquel, and now she's back. So there's like all these conversations that happen throughout this episode. But for the most part, the mic drop moment for me was finally them giving us an explicit answer on what the hell Desmond's been doing to actually kill all of these people, including Kasha, everybody in the courtroom. What was this? Was it technology? Was it bioweapons? And we find out it basically was a virus bioweapon. And I think that's a great answer. And so I'll pause there because that's a lot. That's pretty much the whole bucket, but let's just pick it apart. What did you guys think was the most interesting piece of this whole bucket?
I think for me, we talked so much about Dorothea,
Mm-hmm.
and we literally never really mentioned Mother Raquel, and it feels very good for them that it was Raquel and not Dorothea. I mean, that's pretty much the best outcome for them. And do we believe her and that it's Raquel? I don't know. I mean, it could, I guess, still technically be Dorothea, and she's like biding her time and being helpful in a certain way. But yeah, I thought that was something that in hindsight feels quite obvious, but it just almost felt like the more interesting answer was going to be Dorothea. But again, they only have so many episodes. Like the Dorothea thing seems like it would have been dragged out more than this Raquel, like who's very intelligent, figured things out for us, and now like we're moving, you know. So that worked.
I was a little confused about like what the ancestors know versus like what has happened after they have died, because Raquel, if this is Raquel, going off of your theory, Kyle, I was thinking that it definitely could be somebody else pretending to be Raquel. But I know they asked the questions and like, did my daughter Dorothea and Valia ever, come to an agreement and, get the answer no. And we get the reaction from Raquel through Lyla that seems genuine, but again, this could just be part of the con and she's acting. But she referenced the Great Machine Wars, so she had knowledge from there too. So it seems like it was Raquel, and it definitely gave me whiplash going from Lyla screaming, not be able to controlling anything, to Raquel perfectly coming through clear, back to Lyla just being kind of okay and no voices. I was like, this is. I get it's supposed to be like chaos in her mind, but I was like, that's just it seems like very inconsistent. I don't know.
So, all right, two things I want to point out. In terms of rules, because I know we brought this up in the past, like which Reverend Mothers, when you take the Shai-Hulud blood, who do you have access to? Is it everybody, or is it just your specific ancestors? And it sounded like they confirmed it again this episode, saying one of her four mothers. So right along the lines of what I was kind of thinking, where it's not like all of the whispering we've been hearing is coming from the same source. It has to be from your own versions of what your ancestors are giving you there. But Raquella wouldn't have known about Dorothea and Valia's like falling out because Lyla wouldn't have known that, is what I took it as. Why would Lyla know anything about what happened before she was born for Raquella to gain access to those memories? If it was Dorothea that she was in, she would have remembered, but I don't know if the sisters have access. Like, I don't know how that works. If like, because Dorothea is a descendant of Raquella, does she also get those memories, or is it only who's alive? Like, I don't really know. I'm playing it off as headcanon that Lyla wouldn't have known anything about the details of that relationship.
That makes sense. I kind of like that a lot. Because I
Yeah.
feel like before they've referenced like things in the world going on that's kind of happened after they died, but I guess it depends on who they are speaking to and stuff like that and what their knowledge is. So that makes perfect sense and clears that up for me.
Any other comments on that, Kyle?
On like the functionality of Raquella and Dorothea, or just like,
do you agree with that explanation, or do you see anything different?
oh yeah, I mean, I still am not totally convinced that it is Mother Raquella, though. I mean, I could
Okay.
totally see Dorothea testing to see what Tulla would answer with that question, especially with there being an acolyte in the room, you know, getting a temperature for how things have progressed in the aftermath of her being Dorothea in this instance, being murdered essentially by Valia.
I still think it's on the
I
table.
think it's technically possible. Yeah. I don't know how much I believe that to be a thing, but I think it could be a thing.
I definitely think that was Raquella, but I'm not ruling out Dorothea taking over next episode and causing some chaos and that being a final fight. I think that's more likely because Raquella, and I'm putting quotes up for that, goes on to even ask about like, how's Valia doing? Like, I don't regret picking her. I guess she could be playing the long con, but it almost felt like she was being genuine when she was giving them the information. She was doing the research. She figured out from the brain matter that it's a biological virus. Like, all of that felt too genuine, and it would almost feel like they're just trying to trick the audience straight up if that's the reveal. I think it would be more satisfying if they're going to go the darker route with Lyla to make Dorothea pop up for the first time in her body next episode. But anything can happen. We're kind of at that point where who knows how they're going to try and wrap up the sisterhood and get them back onto the same page, because I think they have to be on the same page by the end of next episode. Otherwise, how do we survive to become the Bene Gesserit in 10,000 years?
Yeah, it's just so hard to know like where the story is going to end. Like, are we going to get a complete story here, or is this just season one of a multi-season story?
That would be
Because
so lame if they just ended on like a
Yeah.
cliffhanger.
like, I mean, it just feels like there's so much for them to do in this last episode.
To go off of that, I mean, we got Emmeline doing the scripture talk still again. She's like diving into that. We got Mother Raquella speaking through Lyla, talking about, oh, it was worth the risk, even if it almost led to the sisterhood being divided. And like that theme just keeps coming up, and I'm just waiting for the divide to happen because, you know, we got Granny Avila talking to Tula. Oh, would Valia do this as well? And like, it just more conversations with Valia and the acolytes being like, why did you lie and not tell us the whole truth? Just so much of that going on. I feel like there is going to be a split, which makes it become the Bene Gesserit. They were like, we have to abandon, you know, our old name because we're starting anew. So it could see like it's just, you know.
Yeah. It's just like a lot.
Dude,
there
so much.
Because even like Sister Michaela, we'll talk about that more obviously in the next bucket, but she is almost breaking away from Valia too, it seems like. So it's like, is all that actually going to happen in the last episode, or is it more that they're going to show us what's possible and then continue things in another season? I just don't know.
And one more thing, I don't know if it's going to come back, but I feel like it should. Like the sedative that Jen received from Tula, because they made it a point to show it, and then we never saw it again. So I don't know if it's going to pop up next episode. There's just like a lot of things, exactly what you're saying, that they left waiting to be answered, all teed up for next episode. But if we don't get that, that would just kind of be a slap in the face.
The I think main question for me at this point, with like what we found out in the Wallach IX stuff, is like, how does the virus actually function? Like how is he infecting other people with it and being so selective with it? Because it's not the fact that like you have to have, it seems like you have to have both the virus in you and a certain threshold of fear, let's say.
Okay.
I mean, if it can't just be like willy-nilly airborne, where like, Kasha coughing in a room with everyone, like that all, that Valia, Tula, like have it now too in their amygdalas. And that maybe, I guess, Valia is so in control of her own fear that it didn't happen in the council room, or whatever you want to say for her. I mean, is Kieran, was he not be kind of affected too if Horace got affected somehow in the room in general? And like, he was obviously probably more afraid than almost anyone in that room at that point, and nothing happened to him. So I think that the mechanism of it all is very important.
Yeah, I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Like, they did not clarify the inner workings of it yet. They just have put a label on it, which is a start, and definitely should be touched on next episode, because we're going to see Desmond try and activate it again, and maybe there we'll get a conversation. Or, like I've been pounding the table for, I need to see Desmond on Arrakis and what the heck happened with Shai-Hulud, because that to me feels like a key part in that. Could be an easy way for the show to jump in and explain like how he has this ability. We have to see like how he learned how to use it, right? So just because he's an Atreides and a Harkonnen doesn't give him the ability to activate this virus or spread it in any way. Like, there's still answers to be given. So I'm giving the show some goodwill here and saying I know they're going to answer it next episode. But I do like the idea about it messing with both your liver, and then it also gathers in the amygdala, which is like the fear center. So that would make it. There's so many bones there for it to be like a cool virus that like fits into the Dune world like it does. But we need we need a little bit more just hard magic rather than soft magic explaining the rules.
Yeah. And it clearly being like maybe this next step of the evolution too of the sisterhood of this fear as the mind killer, like the control over your amygdala, like complete control over that being, a next type of bioengineering hacking that they're doing to themselves. I mean, it didn't really have, I guess, a huge impact on the episode, but I liked just like seeing the training even of them like on the butane flame or whatever it was, and like talking about how like you have to like almost like transmute your own cells to like avoid the pain of it all.
That's the coolest stuff whenever they're talking about the sisterhood, is their mastery over their biology.
Yeah. So I mean, it seems like there's definitely a line that can be drawn there, or dots that can be connected there. So again, we'll see.
I think we were dancing around it last episode about how people get infected, whether they touch the, mind machines. What was it?
Thinking machines.
Thinking machines. I just think of smart TV, and I was thinking smart machines, and I was like, that's not it. So I think that's still a good, theory about how people get infected with this virus. Now, whether Desmond is infected with the virus, or if he's something else entirely completely, if he is the thinking machine, like, we've been theorizing this whole time, that maybe that's the only, or that's why he can activate it. I don't think like he would be able to manipulate other people's biology the way that the sisterhood manipulates their own. I feel like manipulating somebody else's is like almost overstepping. So
it's like the Force.
So I don't know.
It seems almost too magical.
Exactly. So it makes me think he is a thinking machine who's able to just, sense wherever this virus is that, the machine created itself. So that's a whole other theory, though.
Answers to come. I'm personally guaranteeing we're getting some Desmond backstory next episode, and I was praying for it this episode, but now is the personal guarantee, and that's going to answer all these questions we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly not working with the same hardware he had when he popped out of Tula. Like, things changed.
Yeah. And I think the biggest loophole that we're trying to figure out is, how did Kasha die? Right?
Yes.
All the other
100%.
ones can be answered, but we're like, how did she get infected, and how was she getting hit from so far away, like when she actually did burn.
Yeah, I mean, that seems, I don't know, because they're really pushing this like him being the mechanism thing, while this episode makes it almost to believe it's more like with your own biology, like, you know, the activity in your own amygdala that is
The
affected.
trigger.
Yeah, which would be the trigger of it. And she was just so spooked by, I guess she was still having the dreams. I don't really know. Yeah, I mean, they'll get into that, I assume. I would hope.
Definitely. I guaranteed it, so we're good.
Yeah, I mean, we need Lyla as Mother Raquella to do some more explaining, it seems. I don't know who else would be the person that could explain it to us, unless he explains it somehow.
Shout out to Raquel again, because after her first episode 1 appearance, I was like, okay, we didn't get much from her. And then you see the flashback episode and it added so much more respect to her as a person. And then you add this in where she comes in, she's a scientist, she figures it out in 2 seconds. Like, she seemed to be like the homie of the sister.
Yeah, she was working. Some of the science
so
stuff they were using was cool too. The way that like
I
the skin just kind of like
yeah.
glooped into the glop, and then it kind of glopped up. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let me mention one quote that we get from Lyla while she's talking to Jen after they're talking about the dreams. She repeats the idea, the gaping maw of Shai-Hulud swallowed by darkness until 2 eyes stared back. Another sentence goes by, and then she says, if he succeeds, humanity will backslide into destruction, meaning we've been saying that potentially Lyla could be the destruction that's coming that we've been talking about, but it seems like she's even aware of the destruction and she's putting that on us onto it sounds like Desmond, right? If he succeeds, humanity will backslide in destruction. What I'm taking from that is if he succeeds in destroying the sisterhood won't be there to guide us through the path to finally get to Paul Atreides. And do either of you guys have different takes on what Lyla was getting at when she's talking about that like overarching quote?
See, when she said he, I was, because I know we've almost been flipped in this.
So you thought that was
quest.
Paul?
And I was like, thinking that being a more like long-term prophecy thing of a figure in the future being the Kwisatz Haderach or whatever, being Paul,
could be
potentially
definitely.
Paul's children, all that stuff. So when she like literally used the ambiguous rather he, I was like, okay, they're leaving that up for interpretation.
Yeah,
there, like that was clocked.
Definitely how I took it. You know, first thought Desmond, because that's the one we're first seeing, but you know, Paul came into my mind right after. I didn't settle on either one. If I had to guess, I would guess Paul, and they don't know it though. They're thinking Desmond, but in reality, the prophecy's thinking farther beyond. But I'm not confident sitting on one or the other.
Okay.
I feel confident about the Paul thing.
You do? Okay.
I feel like this is the first time I feel really confident, especially as we're getting later in the season, that this is like meant to set up like that level of connection.
I really hope so. Any alluding to Paul Atreides is my shit. Like I want that, and I haven't been able to say confidently that anything has been, because we've been dancing around. Is it now, or are we talking about in the future?
I feel more confident about it because it's coming from presumably the mouth of Mother Raquella / Lyla, who's this like kind of new awakened concept. When it was like Valia or like Tola, let's say, interpreting the words, I felt it was more obvious that they would just think Desmond, and we literally even have Valia being like, oh, bang, like they're talking about Desmond. And that felt like we talked about last episode. It was too easy for them to just give us that answer. So there almost has to be more to it. So that's why I lean more towards the Paul side of things.
Okay, let's take it home. And Sister Avila gives the blood sample from Desmond to the girls, and they end up doing the research, whatever. Skip ahead to the end, and we have that final scene where we're looking at the genetic library, and we see everything isolate down to Desmond being a Harkonnen and Atreides. And my question is, I kind of said it off the top, like, is there now a chance that Paul Atreides is a descendant of Desmond? And the only way I can think for it to work is if he literally just hooked up with the Empress and got her pregnant right now, because how that would work out would be that she's a Carino, right? So what we know from the Dune movies is that Paul's dad, who's Oscar Isaac, whatever, he's a cousin of a Carino. This could be somehow how the lines get intermingled, because it would be an Atreides / Harkonnen having a kid with a Carino, and then eventually could turn to Paul. Or it could just be as simple as Desmond's going to die, and it's just a cool implication that Tula's kid lived on. I don't know how else this reveal even matters if there isn't some future implication, because who cares besides Tula?
No, I mean, I agree. That's what I had said at the top too, of like, the important thing is going to be like, well, what does this actually mean beyond the
Yeah.
fact of the matter? The one thing that was always interesting to me, that because I didn't read the books and I don't know enough about anything, but like if the goal was to be Atreides and Harkonnens, like, don't you think they could have just kept doing that? They could have just kept having them bang. Yeah, I mean, like, obviously there's some level of effort involved in getting that to happen discreetly without the world knowing they're trying to create this being, I guess. But it feels like if they knew that's what was up, then let's just keep getting after that.
Well,
I'm sure they could have thought of some weird mystical lie of why these two bloodlines like work well and just like always need to breed together. I don't know.
But let me just throw this out there though, because this was one of my first thoughts too, after like sitting down and just saying like, what are the possible implications of this? Maybe the implication is he doesn't actually have a kid, whatever, he's going to die next episode. That's fine. The implication would be that Shai-Hulud, like the worms on Arrakis, confused him to being the Messiah because he is an offspring of Harkonnen and Atreides, which is very similar to the genetic makeup of Paul Atreides. So it was more about like, that's why the worm acted weird to him. And that would be a good enough reason to give the explanation of how he potentially got the powers, because we know that Paul Atreides is treated like a god amongst the Shai-Hulud worms and everything. So that's the only thing I can come up with, but I kind of like it.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that Desmond has prescience in some way?
More about him not just getting absolutely killed by the worm and then something not magical, but something crazy is going to happen that we're going to get shown. Not that he can see the future like Paul. No, I don't think he could do that unless he's actively taking spice.
The Empress does have a line at the end right before they make out where she's like, Shai-Hulud makes the final choice. You've been chosen. Mm-hmm. So, I mean,
plays into it.
It definitely seems like something like you could have sensed the blood, exactly what you're saying. I don't know if Shai-Hulud necessarily was mistaken or knew that this was like the time to implement to eventually lead to the prophecy. I really don't know. You guys know more about how omnipotent and seeing.
Not really. Not the first two books don't dive into that, but I am told that the later books that Frank Herbert wrote do. So I don't know. Like the movies didn't make it clear, and the first two books at least don't make it super clear.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding of it all, from what I know of, is that people map a level of agency onto Shai-Hulud.
It's possible, yeah.
Through just religion and mysticism versus Shai-Hulud just actually like just being a worm,
But there has to be some level of connection, right? Because of the weirdness it reacts to Paul in.
I guess,
but I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I'm just not sure at all, to be quite honest.
But before we move on to the next planet, while we're talking about ancestries here, I need to throw this out because this has been bothering us forever. I finally ripped the Band-Aid off, and I was willing to look at spoilers from the prequel books about ancestries here. And the father of Harrow is a fourth brother, or a second brother, a fourth kid named Danvis. He dies. I don't even think he was mentioned in the show, but that's how.
What a joke.
That's how Tola and Valia and Griffin are all his uncle and aunts, whatever. But he, in the books, like he just was somebody that after Griffin dies, he goes to the Landsraad next. There's this whole plot with the Atreides that he's fighting with. And essentially he volunteers they're going to poison everybody. He'll also take the poison so that the plot doesn't get found, but give him the antidote after. He did that. And he basically was like in a permanent coma for a while. So he's essentially a nothing character that they could easily just have dropped. They morphed it with Griffin. So maybe in the show, Griffin is Harrow's father, but it wasn't made clear. In the books, Danvis is Harrow's father. So there's a fourth kid that just completely was not mentioned or talked about. That is so annoying that they did that because they could have easily fixed that.
Yeah. And I mean, could they still technically? I mean, add it to the list of things we're still curious about into the finale, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I guess it would really just take a line, but we'll see. Because Harrow became a little bit of a willing participant in scheming and such this episode. So
okay, so let's jump over. We'll pick up with Harrow in a couple scenes here, but let's just talk about just the opening. The Emperor's starting to get some balls here, right? Like he's trying to consolidate his power, show a will of force here. He nominates Desmond to be his new Bashar. Was that ever established in the past? Just like his Imperial force leader. different than the command fleet leader that Constantine becomes at the end. It might just be like a synonym for just like the head of his personal guard or whatever. But either way, he gets his flowers for helping snuff out the rebellion last episode. There's this weird little moment. Oh yeah, it looks good too. So Sister Francesca shows up, who is the mother of Constantine. We get that reveal this episode. We have this weird little moment where the Empress is almost like flirting with Desmond in front of the Emperor. I don't know if either of you guys picked up on that vibe where she's like, "It suits you well," and she's like looking him up and down, which pays off in the end. But all of this is kind of happening right in the beginning. And so yeah, just intros. What did you think? Was there anything surprising here? Were you happy that we got just Sister Francesca right off the bat, like a new sister who seemingly important and seemingly had an affair with the Emperor in the past? And that could have been the rift between the Emperor and the Empress that was hinted at like in episode 2 or whatever it was.
I only like it from the perspective that it makes Constantine's story more interesting.
Sure.
Was not of a mind where we needed another character in the show, but her, and I hate to say it like this, but her main function being moving Constantine's story along works for me.
Yeah.
I'm like not even convinced that was actually Sister Francesca. For some reason, I had in my head that was Theodosia the whole time. The only thing that contradicts it is Francesca is in House Harkonnen talking to Valia, and Valia says to her Francesca, like she refers to her as Francesca. Now, I didn't know if that was like the long con. If Harrow was watching and spying, she needs to refer to her as Francesca because she can't, say Theodosia again. At the same time, Valia just killed Harrow's uncle in the house and nobody seemed to notice. So it's almost like, why would she have to go to that lengths if it actually was Theodosia? Why couldn't she just refer to her? The only reason I said that is because I don't think Theodosia knew about Kash. Well, did she know about Kasha's death? She did.
Yeah.
Theodosia did.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, then, you know what? I just wasted 2 minutes of your guys' time.
No, I thought it was interesting too because I don't remember. Did I miss them confirming that Constantine sent for her, or she just lied to the Emperor?
No.
Never confirmed it with Constantine.
Valia sent for her.
I know, but she tells the Emperor that she's here for Constantine because Constantine sent like a message to her, essentially.
No, cool. Constantine says to Francesca when she first meets her, "Oh, did you get my letter?" or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, so that's what I literally watched the episode twice, and for some reason I came out with it still confused on that.
No, the end of it was that Constantine said, "I never sent you, I never recruited you to come here." And it was Valia doing it in her place so that she could get Constantine back under wraps and have Desmond distract it and basically just reorganize all the power again to get it into their favor. Constantine says, like, I didn't ask for you to come here when they're sitting down in the sparring room. But
so then
you guys are making me question it, but I'm pretty sure
no, you're good because I was questioning my own memory of things. But I guess because I'm trying almost to feed into Paul's idea that it was Theodosia instead, and like where would be like the lies, the things that don't match up that would give us the hint that it's Theodosia. That felt like one that could have been it, but it doesn't.
I mean, I like the Theodosia theory. I don't think it's true, but I definitely think the face dancing has to come into play next episode in some level. So we should be having that. List. Yeah, well, definitely. But we should be having that question almost in every interaction. So that was like a good thought, but I don't know how it would play or like why it would even matter that unless what you're saying is correct, where it was a long play on Harrow, but again, maybe not, but her whole plan gets explained here to Francesca, who comes in pissed. Like Francesca storms up to Valia and she says, "All right, I have a plan. We're gonna kill Desmond. We're gonna get Nez back to Wallach IX so that she can train and become the first sister empress in the future. And then we're gonna have Constantine be appointed to the new fleet admiral so that Francesca can be happy, like with the state of things too, and she would actually help them along with their plan." That all gets discussed here. It seems like they're both on the same page that this is a good idea because it all works out for them, and they agree to go forward with this plan. The hiccup, of course, being Desmond and Michaela, like what's going on with the rebellion, all that stuff. So if you don't have anything else to comment specifically before we get to like Harrow going to Desmond, then we could just keep going.
Yeah, all good.
Yeah. Okay. So just taking it right there. I thought this was a good scene in hindsight because I thought Harrow was just a typical Harkonnen snake that just does whatever he can to get power. But this was a good play because this was all in Valia's mind, where he was going to go to Desmond and apologize to him for the whole courtroom scene and do whatever he can to help Desmond so that he's forgiven in the eyes of the Emperor. And I just thought this was a good scene. Did you guys like this, or were you buying Harrow, like what he was selling, or did you think that he was actually working for Valia?
I simply cannot get over the fact that Desmond works a desk job.
I knew you were going to say
so funny to me that he walks in and he's just like at his desk, like doing.
He's looking at papers.
I guess so. Yeah, it just makes me laugh. I don't know why. That's initially the first thing I thought of. But then, yeah, I don't think I could tell either way during the conversation, but I was very interested to know like what the actual motivations were here. Because like you're saying, it literally could have been either way. And I think I almost would have been fine with it being either way.
I was talking Harrow up a lot last episode, and I'm gonna stick by it because I think he's playing both sides right now. I think he is doing what Valia says because he wants to elevate the house from its bottom feeder position that it's in, but at the same time he knows that Valia might not have what's in the house's best interest. So he could be in like, all right, Valia gave me the jump start. Let's see if I can talk to Desmond to even go higher than her. Because he does take the crystal. Desmond says to him, I'll need proof that your aunt is involved. So he takes the crystal, no idea what it is, but he pats
I thought you were going to
himself.
just tell me what it was. I was like, what is that?
No.
My only thing would be like, is it some type of like recording device? Because I'm like, is he wearing a wire? Because when he goes to talk to Valia, he like pats himself. I assumed he was feeling for the crystal, whatever, it is. And then he has a conversation, doesn't reveal to Valia that he was offered this. So he's hiding information from her. So that's why I was like, all right, he might be trying to play both sides. How he, jumps and like how he actually shows Desmond that his aunt is involved, I'm not really sure.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I like that.
That is a good guess.
My only idea was that, like the little John that was worth something valuable, and the Harkonnens, obviously, they only have the whale for trade really in there.
Would their
coffers
be
so
under the bar of a thinking machine if it's just a recording device? Because I know they do have those like teaching recording devices that Paul Atreides is watching right off the rip in like one of the first scenes of Dune that he's looking to like study.
Well, I mean,
it's not a thinking machine, right?
The biology
I would say no.
DNA tester they used earlier, that wasn't technically a thinking machine because Jen is using it and she's not like, what is this? So I would assume, it's just regular machine.
I can buy it, but I don't like the implications of that because it sounds like you're talking shit on my boy Harrow.
What are you talking about?
No,
I love him.
hey,
what are you talking about, dude?
He's
my
gonna
boy.
backstab. No, you're right. I'm jumping on the train late.
Valia. We already know how we feel about Valia. Oh, something too.
Yeah, I
read.
That's true. I guess that's
people talking about this episode is like, who are people rooting for? Like, who are we supposed to be rooting for? I know, I guess, but it's like, I don't really know who I'm even rooting for.
Weirdly, rooting for Desmond, which he's clearly the bad guy.
Shown almost as like the villain. So it's just interesting.
But it's like Valia is okay, like the main character. Maybe you're not supposed to root for her, but everything she does is like almost evil and immoral. Like she makes Michaela blow up her bar and she's like, well, we have a backup plan. And Michaela's like, what the fuck that was my whole life. And like, she just lies to people left and right to get her goal through. So it's not like you want to root for her. Maybe Tula, because like, she's just trying to prove herself. And like, I don't know.
If I were to guess, I would think that the writers would assume that the audience is rooting for Nez, but I just don't think a lot of her scenes hit. And I almost, it's like a chemistry issue. Maybe it's not enough screen time issue, but like she is like a quote unquote good character. It seems she has like one of the best moral compasses on the show right now, but like, I'm not out here hoping that she frees Kieran, gets a good love story, ends up on that throne. None of that. So at the end of the day, I'm just rooting for fun, which means Desmond does good things. Yeah. So, and that's what we're kind of getting is why I'm getting a little bit hyped for the finale. Cause I think Desmond's queued up to be in the spotlight. It's going to be him versus Valia, I think for the most part on Salusa. So, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah. I just don't really know who I'm even rooting for. So we'll see. Maybe it'll
Albert.
be like the finale will turn on and it'll be like when you flip a coin and like that makes the decision for you. Like when I first click on the finale, I'll be like, okay, that's what I'm rooting for.
Well, no, not to jump ahead too much, but when Kieran's in the suspension chamber and Nez is there, in that moment, I was like, if you free him, I hope you don't get away. Like, I don't like him. Like, I'm kind of rooting for House Carino here for some reason. I don't know why. So there's a coin flip.
All right, let's do, in my opinion, the most action-packed, maybe the funnest part of this entire episode. Most fun, I shouldn't say funnest. The whole Michaela storyline here. So it starts off with the chase of Desmond leaving the palace. He goes in and just asks Kieran, "Do you want to come on the hunt?" I thought he was implying that he knew, but it didn't necessarily seem like it until later. But that little moment happens. And then Kieran immediately goes to Michaela. They get the bombs. That all happens. But now let's just talk about it because Desmond comes in all cocky with his little personal guard, sitting his ass on the bar, like kicking his feet almost. He's like, all right, go, boys. And they just tear everything down. And at the same time this is happening, Kieran's setting up all the bombs. And when the boys that are working for Desmond find all the spice, he also finds, after his conversation with Michaela, which we can talk about too, he also finds Michaela's sisterhood cloak. So he knows right away like that this has been the rebellion went hand in hand with the sisters, and that's going to probably be a huge plot point for him next episode. And then the blow up happens and he saves himself. So talked a lot right there about just like, or I brought up a lot of screen time right there, but it is a lot of action. But anything specific you want to bring up, because there's a lot there.
Yeah, I got a few instances. First one, you already talked about it, but when Desmond's walking with his elite squadron and he goes, "Oh, sword master," I just started cracking up. And
He's having fun.
Same thing. Like you think he knows, but he's actually just asking. I don't actually think he knows. Maybe he had suspicions, but either way. I also loved that Constantine comes in because he's supposed to get a sword lesson right here, and he's like, "Come on, Atreides." And he does a little salute. And I was like, that's fucking awesome. I mean, I know there's so many references to the movies and the Atreides, but whenever we get them, it's like Leonardo DiCaprio, like on the couch, drinking the beer, pointing at the TV. It's like, oh, like it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Now for Desmond, I'm kind of upset that he didn't think about going through this underground market, like, because I talked about it when he captured the rebels. I was like, I'm a little upset they didn't show it. And now I'm thinking, like, where did he even capture them? If the rebels weren't all in this underground market and like doing like, and they didn't question them about anything, like, I feel like this should have been like a slam dunk for Desmond to go looking here in the first place. I mean, beyond that, it's like whatever, because he talks about he found a smuggler, interrogated them. That's where it led to the bar. So it kind of like makes sense, but definitely like with Horace being in this bar all the time, Kyle, I know we were kind of talking about it. Like it's easily identifiable, like this group of people. But Michaela was awesome. Michaela was the whole time she's smirking and plays everything off well, even hiding from Kieran that she's a sister up until she pulls out the knife and everything. She's never going to convince Desmond. Desmond already knew to rip everything up.
Big Michaela
That was an
fan.
interesting payoff with the knife being a thing, because they've shown Valia have that knife a lot, and I never would have guessed that would be the way that Kieran would clock her as a sister.
I had that.
No, like,
well,
that
he's a
was
weapons
like
master, so it kind of makes a little bit more sense for him to be trained in like weaponry in the Empire and stuff. But you're right. I didn't think that was going to be how connected.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just figured it would be some other, like, maybe less physical, less like object focused thing. It would be more of like a scheme thing that would actually blow her cover to him. But I think it worked well. She, again, is a very interesting character, but is her story resolved, do we think?
I hope not.
I think so.
You think so?
Because she after she talks to Valia, and you already brought it up, Paul, like her whole life here is gone. She says, "You're going back to Arrakis." And she says, I will go, but I'm not going to betray the Fremen. Like, they're my people. I feel like she can just exit stage left and it doesn't really matter. But I do like every second she's on screen, so I don't want her to be gone. But at the same time, how much more time do we have to dish out to all these random side characters when, like you keep saying, we have an hour left?
My only theory about how she would continue this story is, obviously it seems like she had some feelings like for Kieran, whether like they kind of looked at each other with respect, not romantic feelings or anything, but like friendly, I guess. So my
Yeah.
only guess would be that she helps Nez break Kieran out of the suspension chambers in the palace, and that's where she kind of comes back in and kind of like turns her back on the sisterhood. And then also, Kyle, to your point, I thought she gave away that she was in the sisterhood in the very beginning when Kieran walks in because he's freaking out and she's like, "All right, let's get your heartbeat to where it needs to be."
Mm.
I thought, she was just revealing that she could read his heartbeat and,
Mm.
internal signs. It could just be a saying like, all right, let's calm down or whatever.
Yeah.
But in my head, I was like, yo, are you slipping? And then regards to that knife, I mean, I feel like that knife is so iconic within the sisterhood that he knew right away. So I kind of dug it because that's what I wrote down. As soon as she pulled out the knife, I was like, oh, like Kieran's going to figure it out. And I was happy he did and wasn't like oblivious to it. Also,
Mhm.
her fighting, I'm sure he wasn't expecting her to like be that good. Actually, no, Fremen are badass, so I'm sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, yeah. But it's you can't pass up an opportunity just to shout out the Atreides because they're just the best fighters. Like it's cool when you get to see them actually go to work. Like they're just natural born fighters. It makes
Yeah.
sense that he was kicking everybody's ass.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
and we'll see what Desmond does about this going forward. Because I mean, he definitely has the level of trust needed in like the Emperor and the Empress to like say that this is what happened without having any evidence of it happening. Because the cloak itself burned up in that explosion. I mean, he watching it the second time, he does drop it to then activate his shield, so it wasn't protected in any way. We see him have like a piece of cloth a couple times. It can't have been that one because they literally showed us that he dropped it and it burned up in the explosion. So is that something about Tulla? Is that like a memory thing from
I
his
was
childhood? So we'll see. But like in this next episode, he's obviously going to use this information as the excuse essentially for the emperor to throw all of his weight behind crushing the sisterhood. But it's really just going to be his word. I can see that that's kind of a way where the sisterhood could wiggle out of it essentially.
in regards to the cloth, they showed it first thing when the episode opens up. He's kind of like getting ready, putting his knife in his belt, and they show that. I believe that's the first time they showed it, though. I literally wrote like they're focusing on it. Obviously, it's important,
Yeah.
but I don't ever remember them showing it before. They show it at the end. Obviously, he's almost like sniffing it or holding it to like his mouth. So yeah, I don't know. Is that like the clothes that he was wearing and his mother sent him off or something like that, and that's like the last rag he has of it as a memory? But like, why would he sniff it? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm
Or is
just
that the token thing that he's the Gola, that he smells it for the scent connection to memory, which gets him into character.
which yeah, sparks fear into his mind. He remembers the smell and gets scared. I don't know, but add it to the list of things they got to wrap up next episode.
It's possible because it's technically not impossible.
Yeah.
Fair.
That's what I'll say. Yeah, that's what I'll say.
Okay.
That's what
But
I'll say.
overall, yeah, I thought that was a good scene. Like we needed something crazy actiony to happen, and since we got teased with the bombing in the throne room, like it was good to see something come of the bombs and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
Real quick, this conversation that Desmond had with Michaela about her being a Fremen and he's getting all pissed off that she's profiting off the rape of her own planet. Like, I can't tell. Does Desmond like he loves Arrakis, right?
I think
Like,
so.
Yeah, love might be strong, but I think that he like has a genuine level of respect for it, and it seems like the Fremen love would be kind of almost twisted if he kind of just kills them and his military career.
I
You know?
I know that's why I'm so confused because he was there to basically kill the Fremen, right? Like to
Well, no, I
help
mean he was
spice
there to
trade.
collect the spice. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, to protect it from the Fremen. But at the same time, he like has this affinity for Arrakis. But at the same time, like I think with Shai-Hulud too, because he was like offering himself up. So I was like, is this like parallel to Paul? Like he was sent there to fight them, and then he found respect for them. I this conversation between him and Michaela, I was really just trying to figure out where he stands, but I was just so confused. So
I think
I mean,
he respects them.
yeah, and I think from his perspective, it's pretty obviously hypocritical of her in a way. I mean, she is a Fremen. She's working for some type of rebellion against the Empire, but in doing so, she's contributing, like she's profiting off of the back of the system itself, which is directly oppressing her own people. So he's kind of just like, questioning that about her.
it's more shot at her morals, if anything, than
I would say so. I mean, is it level of interrogation? Is it what? But I think that, it's definitely a fair question.
Okay.
Just to blow through this scene, because we mentioned it already, like the Harrow reveal to Valia that he was working with her. I didn't see it coming. Was there anything else you want to say? He just says he's going to go back home and bury Uncle Bobby Baratheon, and that might be exit stage left for him too. Like he could be done as well, but also he could come back into play if Paul's right about him backstabbing.
Yeah.
Valia.
I think he's wearing a wire.
Could be.
He's wearing a crystal ball.
I'm in on that.
I was a little upset they didn't show him reacting to the uncle dying, because I thought he would be more suspicious of Valia. Maybe he'll save that till next episode when he does backstab Valia, and he's like, "I know you killed my uncle." You could just chalk it up to the poor health, but I'm glad they at least made a reference to it. That's where I'm going to my uncle's funeral to bury him, back on the home planet or whatever. And then my other theory, which the more I thought about it, didn't really make sense. But like maybe while he's gone, Theodosia will take his face because he's now the head of the house, and being able to impersonate the head of the house she could put things in movement. But at the same time, if he's away at a funeral, I feel like Carinos would know about that. So I don't know how they could like pretend to be on planet when everybody knows he's off planet.
You love the face dancer, don't you?
Well, what's the point? Is they
introduce
it?
There has to be a point.
Yeah, and you're right though. Harrow seems like a great candidate for that, if I'm honest. More
really
so
does.
almost than anyone else, unless it's like to have Valia be in two places at once, which I doubt.
We will get a face dancer in Dune Messiah, so like that gets reintroduced there. So you can have maybe that's what it was. They're trying to queue it up for 10,000 years in the future.
That would just be the perfect summary of like what the media landscape is with all this like high well-known IP bullshit stuff where like they fucking seed that in a TV show about a movie that's gonna come out that was planned before the TV show. It's just like ridiculous that you have to watch all this stuff. But yeah.
All right, I got two groupings of scenes left and we're out of here. So the first one is the easy one to talk about. It is just Francesca going up to the Emperor. It's the kissing scene. It's them talking about Constantine scene. And then Francesca going and talking with Constantine before he finds Kieran's map of the throne room and knows that he's a betrayer. What is there here that you guys liked? I guess his purpose, that was kind of important for him as a character. Talking about his purpose is to protect Nez and protect the future Empress. And that makes sense.
I mean, for me, this is just kind of I'm the man. I'm reading Constantine like a book out here.
I think you are. I really think you are. But
I mean, that's what I'm taking out of this.
Is he still going to die and fight Kieran? Like that could so happen.
Oh yeah. I mean, she literally says your duty is to protect your sister. And this what's going to come down to. He's going to be like,
I think you nailed it.
Thinking straight. Yeah. But also, I love that she being Francesca says to him, like, or she rather says to Haviko, like, he's you. That's why you don't like him. Like he is what you don't like about yourself and like how you used to be. So just push him in the ways that you were pushed. And I'm sure it will come out. And granted, she's also playing the angle that it's good for the sisterhood and those things. But I also think that she genuinely cares about Constantine. And I think that she has feelings for Haviko in a certain way. I mean, I know Valia mentions like the whole imprinting being like a technique of the sisterhood. It feels like, again, that's like level of bioengineering, biohacking stuff that they do. But I still think that at some level she cares about Haviko in a certain parts of her. So yeah, it just feels like they're really setting Constantine up to be this like he is going to get these delusions of grandeur and heroism spurned on by seeing his mother again that he hasn't seen in so long. That's going to push him to kind of haphazardly or maybe misunderstandedly, it's not really a word, but like protect his sister, or I guess almost protect her from herself, because she's going to be like, I'm going to free Kieran because we're going to remake the Imperium in our positive image. And Constantine's going to be like, unhand her, you fucking scoundrel. And Constantine, and then, and, you know, obviously Kieran's going to be like, well, you should have fucking came to the lessons, pussy. Let's get it. And then
He says scoundrel next episode, I'm quitting the podcast.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
word
we're going to remake the
scoundrel
podcast in
comes
my
out.
image.
That's so
but
funny.
This episode made me nothing but more confident in those things that I've been saying.
Totally
You
agree.
literally
Yeah.
said last episode that Kieran is going to kill Constantine because Constantine's trying to protect his sister. So the fact that I watched this whole episode and nothing is steering me away from that. So you have prescience.
I got him. I'm reading him. Like, I think he's a good actor too. I really like his actor. I think he did a really good job in this scene where he's like almost like crying, talking about how like their dad was honestly kind of proud of him about what he did and things like that. And I was just like, dude, this guy.
He did have some
He's-
emotional scenes, but Paul nailed it.
so
He
conflicted.
he goes where the compliments and like the sense of direction are. Like whoever's in front of him, he's like a dog. Like the mom says this, he's over here. Then the dad says this, he's proud of him, he's over here. Like you nailed that, Paul. That's exactly the kind of character he is now.
The one like last comment I have on this specific group of scenes is that I'm so pissed that Kieran just keeps the most incriminating evidence about himself in his locker in the fucking dojo.
I hated that, man.
Like, I guess did Francesca not have a level of involvement, the sisterhood, in finding that? It didn't, because they literally showed Kieran have it, and then that's when Desmond comes in and he gets distracted and he leaves. But it's like, why is it still there, brother? Like, you just watch the guys die in front of you. Like, break that. You don't need it. Like, B, it's the most incriminating piece of evidence you could ever have.
Wow.
Like that, like almost genuinely upset me.
I didn't realize how much I hate that.
No,
yeah, it was like, come on. Why can't you have the sisterhood be involved? Like, why didn't Valia say something to Francesca about something to like plant the seed in Constantine? Like, that would have felt like it made more sense than Kieran being
so
a dope.
true.
Although Kieran's kind of a dope, so
I think they were like, oh shit, we only have one episode left. We got to move this along. Let's make Kieran an idiot and leave it in his locker.
Yeah.
But I thought the same thing in like other senses too. It's like Desmond goes out. He says, we're going to be looking for rebels, leaves. Kieran's like, I gotta go, and goes right to the scene of the crime too, when the whole Carino house is looking for a traitor. And I'm like, maybe you're doing some Atreides shit, ducking behind houses and losing trails, but I'm like, you are going right to the scene of the crime again. Like, I don't know what you're doing here.
Part of me really thought that, again, because we all agree, we had that feeling too when Desmond first walks in, where it's like, oh, they're gonna arrest him here. I thought it was maybe gonna be Desmond like saying that to him and then hiding around the corner, and then like they watch him leave and they followed him to Michaela, and that would have been how it happened, but it didn't happen like that. So Kieran got lucky and then got done in by him being an idiot. So I was just like, whatever.
This is the first episode. The more we talk about it, the less I like the episode.
I mean, they just got us A to B. Our boys in the suspension prison, and that's kind of where we're starting the finale.
I was all hot and bothered coming in. Now I'm like, oh. But there is some good. There's some good here, so don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
And I'm gonna take us into this last grouping, but before I do, I just need to say specifically to you two, I feel like Francesca would have done as an actor better as an Aes Sedai. Just plop her in. She gave me the air of an Aes Sedai from Wheel of Time pretty well. I thought she would have done very well in that. Maybe she can. Maybe this is her casting call tryout for season 4.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully maybe we get more of her. I like what she
will be
brings,
in next episode.
Yeah, to the show, and again, yeah, like you're saying, I really like the acting job, but it's just we got so many damn characters now, man.
It's not actually Francesca though. It's Theo as Francesca, and then
as a character we haven't seen yet. Yeah,
there's a reveal that's gonna come. It's gonna be like, oh my god, Francesca's dead, and they're gonna be like, what are you talking about? She's right here, and then it's Theo. Boom.
The dream would be Timothy shows up in next episode, and then he just takes his face off, and it's Theodosia. Be like, you know.
I honestly, okay, I didn't think of that, but I thought I was like, are we gonna get? It would be so cool if we get like a Paul Atreides cameo, like somebody in the spice, whatever. They're tripping and they're getting the prophecy pumped in, and we see his face real quick or something, or maybe him
Well,
just in the armor.
That would just be the
that's what
eyes.
his
What if it's the
yeah, that's
eyes
his
and fades,
eyes.
and the black just comes into light, and it's just Timothy Chalamet's face, and then the whole Sardaukar
Yo,
throat
I'm
singing, and then
in.
it
That would
ends.
be so cool.
And that's how it ends.
I mean, that's
Just
how
Timothy serving face.
I think that's how episode 1 started, with the throat singing, like the
Yeah,
Harkonnen
it
throat singing,
is.
which is how the first and the second movie both started. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
bring it back.
Okay. Let's do this. Yeah. Last little bit, and we've already talked about it, but it's just like the dinner with all of the royals. They praise Constantine, promote him to the commander of the fleet, which was the plan the whole time. And Nez
I'm
is
so sorry,
go ahead.
but so ridiculous. I just can't. I mean, granted, you're the emperor, so you can do what you want, and this is probably realistic of what happened in a lot of like empires, people with this level of power. But if I'm at that table and I'm like somewhat of a military guy, I'm looking around being like, this fucking guy. Like, what? What are we doing here?
Has
But
he
yeah,
been
I'm
in
sorry.
one battle? Like,
Yeah, like what?
And to make it worse, he is actually being sent to Arrakis to like look over the fleet and stuff. So that's
Crazy.
that. If he was just like just the face of it sitting in the home world, like that would have been fine. But he's going to be out there doing things. That is a little
Yeah.
sketchy. But so he gets the promotion here. Both the Empress clock it and Nez clocks it, as they are absolutely infuriated at this. And then they separate from the table. We have Nez, who goes right to Kieran. We've been talking about that scene a little bit. And then we have the Empress, I think her name's Natalia. Natalia goes to Desmond, and they have their little hookup for a second before talking about the power and like they're ready to go to war. So it was like a cool little parallel scene, and it just plays so into the idea that Kieran versus Constantine is being queued up. Desmond versus Valia should happen next episode. The Empress and the Emperor, I don't think either of them are going to survive. There's just a lot of death coming, I think, next episode. But at the same time, the consolidation of power of the Bene Gesserit has to happen. Otherwise, I don't understand what the hell the purpose of the show was. So if you're going to call the Sisterhood the bad guys because they're led by Valia, I'm almost positive the bad guys are going to be ending up on top next episode with all of the chaos and fun to come with Desmond. I do think he's also going to die. Are you guys on the same mindset where he's not surviving?
Yeah, just who's gonna be on the throne? Is it gonna be like a neutered version of Haviko that's just like accepts the
It could be
fact that he
Nez.
doesn't really have a say in things? I guess. Yeah, Nez maybe. I could see her die. I mean, maybe Kieran dies as well. I don't really know. I mean, yeah, that does
Yeah.
seem a little fairy tale if like her and Kieran like get hitched and she ends up on the throne, but it would be exactly what kind of the Bene Gesserit wants. So
Mm-hmm.
I could see that being a thing for sure. But I'm so glad I re-listened to our last podcast episode, and I was talking like, oh, like, you know, like Nez being like grounded / imprisoned for her outburst at the council, and then Kieran breaks her out, and then I was like, or maybe Kieran is the one that gets arrested and she breaks him out. So I'm glad I threw in that covered every single base possible there and threw in that second option, because that's actually what happened.
I was a little bummed out starting this episode that Nez wasn't like more in trouble for what she did. Like, I know, like she left early and the guards were trying to stop her, and she's like, I did my duty, like all this other stuff. So obviously she's like a little bit slightly grounded, if you want to call it that. But I mean, free will to do everything, walk around, do whatever she wants. Like she just goes down suspension chambers where Kieran is, fine to go in there. Like nobody says anything, even after her whole outburst of accusing the house. So I was a little upset that she had all that freedom, but at the same time, Abiko was like saying last episode, "Oh, we have to stand together, have a show of strength." So I'll attribute
But
it
wasn't
to that.
she the house guards were tailing her, weren't they?
Yeah.
It was almost like a house arrest kind of thing, but she can go where she wants. She's like, then keep up, right? And she like walks by them. Didn't that happen in the
Yeah,
beginning?
yeah.
Like
So
she's
yeah.
It's a slap on the wrist compared to what she should
yeah,
get. So I see her point, but at least they semi acknowledged it.
Yeah. I
yeah.
think they did personally.
They did, like I'm saying, there was a little bit, but it wasn't nearly enough. Like she just accused the house, basically borderline treason, is the way Desmond
Yeah,
put it. And
like a
she's
mutiny.
down here able to interrogate a prisoner who was found to be the traitor, which her questions when she started questioning him, I was like, how'd you not know any of this? You had the whole conversation when you're like professing you love for each other, and she's talking about your dad. We beat it to death last episode. We were like, Kieran, what are you doing the night before the event?
Yeah.
And so I
I'm
was like,
scared.
when she's asking all these questions, I'm like, didn't you already know this? Like, what, like all this other stuff. So, also, intrigued. I assume that she thought he was telling the truth because she didn't react. I don't know how good of a truth sayer she is. I know we've
It
seen
was a
once.
cool scene when she's like,
We've
click.
we've seen it once or twice where she is really good at controlling her emotions. So I assume she would be a really good truth sayer. Even Valia was like, "Oh, good, you remembered your training," back in like episode 2 when we
Mhm.
dropped the Kasha news. So I assume he
I
told
think
the
she
truth.
believed him. Yeah, I think
And
he was being genuine, and I think she believed him. Yeah.
I think that's where it's going to go. She's going to break him out and be like, "Hey, redo this Imperium." Is she going to try to kill her father? Like, because how
I
would
don't
he
know.
rebuild the Imperium if somebody's already on the throne? So I'm like, part of me
Them running away and happily ever after, if you want to even say that, only might work because then that's a valid reason to say that the Atreides line just passes on to Paul eventually. Because then it is a Carino and an Atreides who we know that they're both in relations in some way to Paul. So that could work. But again, do we like happily ever after like that? I don't know.
Yeah, it's just too hard to say. I don't. It's also she's probably not thinking that through either. Again, this is what I was talking about last episode, where like I really want either one of these characters, being Nez, being Kieran, to be faced with this type of this decision. Do I turn my back on my job / my family to like go after what I actually believe in? Like, do I just sit by idly and all these things? So it seems like Nez is going to be the one stuck with that decision. But man, what is step 2? I have no idea. In
That
her
does seem
mind,
like her purpose. Yeah.
yeah, I just don't know what her step 2 is. Like you're saying, Paul, and who can say? I mean, it doesn't seem like she'll be winning any arguments with what she has to bring to the table, unless there's some things that are boiling beneath the surface that we just aren't aware of or haven't heard from her yet. So we will just have to see. I mean, it's also totally possible that it just doesn't work out, that it's like someone dies along the way and then it's all a moot point anyway.
My final theory would be that like Nez does break out Kieran. She does attack her parents, the throne, and then Nez ends up on the throne and then elevates House Atreides to a higher standpoint than it is right now. And that's kind of how, Atreides gets back into the flow of things. But do I want that? I don't know if I want that.
What's the deal with Constantine and all that? Your theory?
Constantine tries to save his sister, and she shows him just a little bit of happiness and respect, and he's like, you know what, I'm on your side, and then jumps ship.
Okay.
So he survives.
Okay.
I have 4 board questions I want for the finale here, mostly quick, just quick hitters. I want your guys' guesses, but we'll revisit this. First one being, did this episode in any way answer or give your best guess to why Desmond was still unaffected by the voices? Like, was that brought up here? Like, does that make sense, or is that still disconnected to what we know?
As in, he hears
asking me rapid fire, I have no idea. I would say no then. My answer would be no.
Okay.
Because he went through the agony, and because he like you're saying he should be hearing the whispers.
But think about it like this: like Paul Atreides' mom, Rebecca Ferguson, can be affected by the voice from Paul. Like just because you have it doesn't exclude you from being affected by it.
You were saying the voice. For some reason, I was thinking of the whispers, not actually Valia's
No.
voice.
Like why? Because didn't Valia try and control him? Like, is that in
100%.
any way connected? Yeah,
Because he's a machine.
that's
why.
the best answer. Okay, I like that one.
Yeah.
Okay. And Kyle's is I don't know. I like machine too. So.
Sure.
Okay, actual easier ones to answer. Will we hear the name Bene Gesserit next episode?
Yes.
Yes. For what
I'm
I
gonna
said
go
earlier.
with no.
It's gonna be Tola. She's gonna be like, look, we look like a couple Bene Gesserits.
Yeah, how did they come up with a name? Just looking around the room.
Context. Yeah, we're looking like a couple Bene Gesserits.
I'm definitely
trying to
going with no because it feels so awkward that they've like just specifically not talked about it now that I think they're just going to drop it. And that's going to really bother me for no other reason besides like why. Like if
It
they,
almost feels so eye rolly. It's so dependent on how they do it. I could see it being so cringe.
it could be.
Them doing it in like a super serious like Bene Gesserit. Like I could see it not landing at all if they try it.
Yeah.
I could see them having that conversation, be like, how do we actually do it? And then being like, maybe let's just stay away from it.
Next one, Paul, you'll go first. Will Desmond die and then will Valia die?
Yes and yes. I think they're both gonna die. Well, I think Desmond died a long time ago, but the machine, it's gonna die.
Okay. Kyle?
I like yes and yes. I think that Valia, I think at some level the story is about the misguidedness of Valia's leadership and the way that she acts. So I think that has to come back around and she'll get some level of comeuppance for that.
And
so
I like that better than my answer because I'm gonna go yes and no, but like yours is more thoughtful. I just am going with no because it just feels right that the sisterhood is put onto the path through like a strong leader like her rather than being reformed all in the span of an hour. And I guess that's more of just real world analysis rather than like what the show is giving us. But I don't know. I think she's going to survive, but okay. Leave it at there. Last question. Go ahead.
Emmeline is going to be the new leader of the Bene Gesserit, and she's going to pull up the name somehow out of some scripture.
That could work. That's actually not a bad idea for
whoa.
Whoa.
Reverend Mother Jen of the Bene Gesserit. Jen. Yeah, you're getting it now. All right, I'm in on that. Let me go, Reverend Mother Jen.
I just think
last question. Who is Paul Atreides a descendant of? Kieran or Desmond?
I'm gonna go Kieran. Yeah,
Kieran. Yeah,
okay,
he just seems the most likely to actually use his penis for procreation.
I'm gonna go with.
That was the most one-sided kiss I've ever seen in my life when the Empress kisses Desmond. I don't even think he didn't even close his eyes. I think his eyes were open the whole time.
You're so right. But I'm gonna just put it on the board because I want to be right if it happens.
Yeah. Although he did say to her at the start, I'm pretty sure he says, "I live to serve." So I mean,
there you go.
If that's what she asks of him, he might do it.
He's basically just Crixus. It's like Crixus and Lucretia.
And no offense to her, and it's really not gentlemanly to speculate about a woman's age, but I don't know if she's necessarily in her peak childbearing years.
That is so freaking true. I didn't even think about that. But also, Desmond's a lot older than he looks, right? Because he must. I guess not really. How old would Tulla be?
He looks like late 30s to me.
Okay, yeah, 40s. Okay, never mind. I assumed he was a different age, but okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Parting shots. I mean, maybe they could get out of here.
Could they harvest his goo in some way?
Probably.
His Desmondness.
Hold him in the suspension chambers and
maybe, yeah.
Suck him.
I don't know. Whoa! I thought we were being a little discreet about what we were. I thought we were talking around it, but we just kind of pulled it.
I'm so upset that that's probably gonna have to get cut.
I'm cutting it. I'm cutting it.
No, leave it. If you made it this far in the episode, you deserve that.
I will. My only other comment for the whole episode, Michaela, the last thing we see of her is her crying and shedding a tear. And I'm like, oh, Fremen aren't supposed to do that. Was that either just like a shot at her, like being completely losing everything and she cried?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was that. She lost the life that she built over the last couple of years. Even if it was in service of the sisterhood, she had genuine connections with Kieran, as we kind of see. So I think it was just like a loss of that.
Okay. For some reason, I was like, oh, is she not actually Fremen? But I don't know. So that was
her time living with the sisterhood and on the planet. Probably lots of those traditions
slip.
She doesn't seem very beholden to them. Yeah.
All right. That was my
last guys. I'm going to take us home. That was a fun one. Like I said, bingetowntv.com for everything we do. We do way more than Dune. We finished From recently. We finished Arcane recently. We're currently covering Silo on Apple TV. And coming up, I think we actually just, by the time you hear this, released the first episode of Dexter Original Sin. And then on deck, we have Severance, Yellow Jackets, White Lotus, The Traitors, a bunch of other shows that are coming. Q1 of 2025 is going to be insane for TV. So definitely follow us, Benchtown TV, across all social medias, and stick around. Go to our Discord. We're constantly talking with everybody. Go to our webpage. You'll catch every single show that we update there. So yeah. So once again, we're Benchtown TV, and thank you so much for listening.